All right. So last Thursday, we got into how the American churches have been divided. But today I wanted to get into something a little bit more divisive, and that's Islam rising in America and what Christianity should be doing in order to get involved and reduce the hopeful rhetoric and rise of Islam and Sharia law in America, right? So I have a goal that I want to reach to everybody. So if you could please like and share. And my goal is to reach 110 subscribers by the end of the year. Can you do that for me? Can you subscribe to the channel and become part of the community here at Redline Live? I would greatly appreciate it. So we're going to get into this pretty deep today because it's concerning to me, the rise of Islam in America and the way that they take over these nations. And we see it happening over in the UK right now and how they were able to do it. And literally, they are birthing us out of our own communities and countries in order to gain control over geographical areas, right? So I want to get into this, and I think it's pretty important that you stay tuned in and listen to what I have to show you today. Some videos, some articles, and some good insight into how Christianity should stand up for America and push back on Islam. Join me next. All right, so I want to share this first article with you guys. I'm going to pull this up on the screen here, and we can read into what's happening right now. You can see this article is back from 2015, but it shows you exactly what's happening around the world. So let's get into it. The future of the world religions, population growth projections 2010 to 2050. Now, I looked into this a little bit in my research, and it's saying that America will be, or Christianity in America will fall to Islam by the year 2070, and that's because of population, right? Let's see here. Let's read into this. Why Muslims are rising fastest and the unaffiliated are shrinking as a share of the world's population. Note June 2025. Religious composition estimates in this report are based on 2010 baseline numbers that have since been updated. Please refer to our 2025 report on how global religious landscape changed from 2010 to 2020 for the latest 2010 and 2020 religious composition estimates. New projections past 2020 are not yet available. Refer to the 2025 report, mythology, and interactive table for more details. I didn't pull that one up because I found this one to be a little bit more interesting, but the religious profile of the world is rapidly changing, driven primarily by differences in fertility rates and the size of youth populations among the world's major religions, as well as by people switching faiths. Over the next 4 decades, Christians will remain the largest religious group, but Islam will grow faster than any other major religion if current trends continue by 2050. The number of Muslims will nearly equal the number of Christians around the world. Atheists, agnostics, and other people who do not affiliate with any religion, though increasing in countries such as the United States and France, will make up a declining share of the world's total population. The global Buddhist population will be about the same size it was in 2010, while the Hindu and Jewish populations will be larger than they are today. In Europe, Muslims will make up 10% of the overall population. India will retain a Hindu majority, but also will have the largest Muslim population of any country in the world, surpassing Indonesia. In the United States, Christians will decline from more than three-quarters of the population in 2010 to two-thirds in 2050, and Judaism will no longer be the largest non-Christian religion. Muslims will be more numerous in the US than people who identify as Jewish on the basis of religion. 4 out of every 10 Christians in the world will live in sub-Saharan Africa. 4 out of every 10 Christians in the world in Africa, ladies and gentlemen, not in the United States. That's crazy to me. These are among the global religious trends highlighting the new demographic projections by the Pew Research Center. The projections take into account the current size and geographic distribution of the world's major religions, age differences, fertility, and mortality rates, international migration patterns in conversion. When you can take a look at their little graph here, it shows that Christians grow in 40 years from 2.17 billion to 2.92 billion, and Muslims at a higher rate, slightly lower in total number, but at a higher rate in the same time period. Pretty scary. And that's because their family, they don't have a singular nuclear family where it's a mom and a dad and however many kids, right? They have several wives, and that's how they procreate and flood these areas with indoctrinated children that grow into their belief system. As of 2010, Christianity was by far the world's largest religion, with an estimated 2.2 billion adherents, nearly a third at 31% of all 6.9 billion people on Earth. Islam was second with 1.6 billion adherents, or 23% of the global population. Islam is growing the fastest. You can see the estimated change in population size over the 40 years. So we're at 25. It'll actually be, what is that? 25 years from now to 2050. If current demographic trends continue, however, Islam will nearly catch up by the middle of the 21st century. Between 2010 and 2050, the world's total population is expected to rise to 9.3 billion, a 35% increase. Over that same period, Muslims, a comparatively youthful population with high fertility rates, are projected to increase by 73%. The number of Christians also is projected to rise, but more slowly, at about the same rate, 35%, as the global population overall. And that's, like I said, because our culture has shifted to not promoting nuclear families, but to have homosexual relationships and adopting children in those families in order to have children. And in vitro fertilization is becoming the technology of the future, where these type of families can manufacture their children, right? They don't come on a regular procreated basis. As a result, according to the Pew Research projections, by 2050 there will be near parity between Muslims, 2.8 billion, or 30% of the population, and Christians, 2.9 billion, or 31%, possibly for the first time in history. With the exception of Buddhists, all of the world's major religious groups are poised for at least some growth in absolute numbers in the coming decades. The global Buddhist population is expected to be fairly stable because of low fertility rates and aging populations in countries such as China, Thailand, and Japan. Worldwide, the Hindu population is projected to rise by 34% from a little over 1 billion to nearly 1.4 billion, roughly keeping pace with overall population growth. Jews, the smallest religious group for which separate projections were made, are expected to grow 16% from a little less than 14 million in 2010 to 16.1 million worldwide in 2050. And you can check out their graph there. Adherents of various folk religions, including African traditional religions, Chinese folk religions, Native American religions, and Australian Aboriginal regions, are projected to increase by 11% from 405 million to nearly 450 million. And all other religions combined, an umbrella category that includes Baha'is, don't know what that is, Jains, Sikhs, and Taoists, and many smaller faiths, are projected to increase 6% from total of approximately 58 million to more than 61 million over the same period. While growing in absolute size, however, folk religions, Judaism, and other religions, the umbrella category considered as a whole, will not keep pace with the global population. Each of these groups is projected to make a smaller percentage of the world's population in 2050 than it did in 2010. Similarly, the religious unaffiliated population is projected to shrink as a percentage of the global population, even though it will increase in absolute number. In 2010, census and surveys indicate there were about 1.1 billion atheists, agnostics, and people who do not identify with any particular religion. By 2050, the unaffiliated population is expected to exceed 1.2 billion. But as a share of all the people in the world, those with no religious affiliation are projected to decline from 16% in 2010 to 13% by the middle of this century. Wow. That's how much our population decline is going to go down, ladies and gentlemen. At the same time, however, the unaffiliated are expected to continue to increase as a share of the population in much of Europe and North America. In the United States, for example, the unaffiliated are projected to grow from an estimated 16% of the total population, including children, in 2010 to 26% in 2050. As the example of the unaffiliated shows, there will be vivid geographic differences and patterns of religious growth in the coming decades. And so this is kind of a catalyst off of what I did on Thursday. You can see here, because of the cultural differences that have come into our society, it's not just in the churches, but it's spreading to people to become unaffiliated with any religious practices. One of the main determinants of that future growth is where each group is geographically concentrated today. Religions with many adherents in developing countries where birth rates are high and infant mortality rates generally have been falling are likely to grow quickly. Much of the worldwide growth of Islam and Christianity, for example, is expected to take place in sub-Saharan Africa. Today's religiously unaffiliated population, by contrast, is heavily concentrated in places with low fertility and aging populations such as Europe, North America, China, and Japan. Globally, Muslims have the highest fertility rate, an average of 3.1 children per woman. Ladies and gentlemen, we are at like a 0.5 today, from what I understand, here in America, like a half a child. Most families don't even have one child. And that's the decline of our population here in the United States. Well above replacement level at 2.1. So we can't even, the average replacement rate for population is 2.1, and we don't have that here in America. They're giving you the example right there. The minimum typically needed to maintain a stable population. Christians are second at 2.7 children per woman. Hindu fertility at 2.4 is similar to the global average, 2.5, and worldwide Jewish fertility is 2.3 children per woman. Also is above the replacement level. So Muslims are the highest, as you can see there. All the other groups have fertility levels too low to sustain their populations. Folk religions, 1.8 children per woman. Other religions, 1.7, and the unaffiliated at 1.7, and Buddhists at 1.6. Look at that. So you can see there, Christians are doing decently, with the largest group of women in between 15 and 59. Wow, there's older women having children over 60. Wow, that's crazy. And under 15. Another important determinant of growth is the current age distribution of each religious group, whether its adherents are predominantly young, with their prime childbearing years still ahead, or older and largely past their childbearing years. In 2010, more than a quarter of the world's total population, 27%, was under the age of 15, but an even higher percentage of Muslims at 34%. That's gross. And Hindus at 30% were younger than 15, while the share of Christians under 15 matched the global average at 27%. Wow. These bulging youth populations are among the reasons that Muslims are projected to grow faster than the world's overall population, and that Hindus and Christians are projected to roughly keep pace with worldwide population growth. All the remaining groups have smaller than average youth populations, and many of them have disproportionately large numbers of adherents over the age of 59. For example, 11% of the world's population was at least 60 years old in 2010, but fully 20% of Jews around the world are 60 or older, and as are 15% of Buddhists, 14% of Christians, 14% of adherents of other religions, 13% of the unaffiliated, and 11% of adherents of folk religions. By contrast, just 7% of Muslims and 8% of Hindus are in the oldest age category. Crazy. In addition to fertility rates and age distributions, religious switching is likely to play a role in the growth of religious groups. But conversion patterns are complex and varied. In some countries, it is fairly common for adults to leave their childhood religion and switch to another faith. In others, changes in religious identity are rare, legally cumbersome, or even illegal. And so this is one of the things right here, ladies and gentlemen, that I need to point out. As a Christian, we need to be hitting the streets like we have never hit the streets before, as we are commissioned to do as ambassadors of Christ, and spread the gospel to everybody in the United States and try to bring and win souls to Christ. This is something the church isn't doing very well, obviously, but if we can reconvene as Christians to do our duty, we can start seeing this turn around. The Pew Research Center projections attempt to incorporate patterns in religious switching in 70 countries, where surveys provide information on the number of people who say they no longer belong to the religious group in which they were raised. In the projection model, all directions of switching are possible, and they may be partially offsetting. In the United States, for example, surveys find that some people who are raised with no religious affiliation have switched to become Christians. Yes, that is still happening, and that is awesome. But we're not just talking about the United States here. We're talking about around the world. We are the strongest religion still. In the projection model, let's see. In the United States, for example, surveys find that some people who are raised with no religious affiliation have switched to become Christians, while some who grew up as Christians have switched to become unaffiliated. That's because of the divide in the church that I talked to you about last Thursday. If you haven't seen that video, please go back and watch it. It's pretty eye-opening. These types of patterns are projected to continue as future generations come of age. Let's see. Over the coming decades, Christians are expected to experience the largest net losses from switching. Globally, about 40 million people are projected to switch into Christianity, while 106 million are projected to leave. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not good, with most joining the ranks of the religiously unaffiliated. See the chart above. As told, the unaffiliated are expected to add 97 million people and lose 36 million via switching, for a net gain of 61 million by 2050. Modest net gains through switching are expected for Muslims, 3 million, which is not even close to the switching from Christianity. Adherents to folk religions, 3 million, and members of other religions, 2 million. Jews are expected to experience a net loss of about 300,000 people due to switching, while Buddhists are expected to lose nearly 3 million. International migration is another factor that will influence the projected size of religious groups, like we're seeing happening in the UK and now here in the United States. Forecasting future migration patterns is difficult because migration is often linked to governmental policies and international events that can change quickly, like we saw during the 4 years of the Biden administration and all of the illegals that came across our border. For this reason, many population projections do not include migration in their models. But working with researchers at the International Institute for Applied Systems Analysis in Luxembourg, Austria, the Pew Research Center has developed an innovative way of using data on past migration patterns to estimate the religious composition of migrant flows in the decades ahead. I'm not going to get into this because obviously we can't determine those. And since this was from back in, what did it say, 2010 at the top here, April, 2015, obviously that was not during the Biden term, and we would have to go check out the other chart to see what it is currently in the United States, because we had a potential 30 million people influxed into the United States. Now, we were talking about, a lot of people are freaked out about the fact that mosques are popping up everywhere, right? Including in Texas, being one of the strongest areas where mosques are popping up. But I want to give you guys some good news here, because it's not as bad as it looks. And actually, breaking today, I heard that because Governor Greg Abbott was caught in a lie and didn't actually enforce the legislation against Sharia law in Texas like he had set forth to do. He came out today, number one, because of that, and number two, because Marco Rubio said that he was going to designate Islam and Sharia law as Islam and CAIR, that's CAIR, as a domestic and foreign terror group. So Greg Abbott did that, and Marco Rubio is going to get ready to do that. So that's a very good thing. We could see that having the potential to change things for Texas for sure. But those are the kind of things that we need to see come into Michigan, come into New York City, come into Georgia, Pennsylvania, these places that are being taken over by Muslim communities, right? So there are no definitive statistics for how many new churches versus mosques opened in America this year, as neither the US government nor private organizations track this exact data. However, evidence suggests that mosque growth has been consistent in recent decades, while the number of churches has been declining or staying stagnant. Now, this is another very important statistic that we need to pay attention to as Christians, ladies and gentlemen. So the number of mosques in the US is steadily increasing, growing from 1,209 in 2000 to 2,106 in 2010. That's coming off the Pew Research stuff, right? And 2,769 in 2020. And there are some estimates now that it's possibly up to 3,900 mosques across the entire United States. While this doesn't provide a figure for this year, it indicates a continuous trend of new mosques being established. While some new churches do open, many denominations are experiencing declining membership and closures. A general decline in church openings has been observed over the past few decades in America, because now we have this divide. We've had this thing coming in, like I talked to you about on Thursday, about the division in Christianity that has been caused. This has been planned for a long time, ladies and gentlemen. But we in the church, we in the real church, are the ones that have to step up and take responsibility as Jesus has set us out to do. The number of religious congregations and communities of other faiths has been growing as well, though the specific number of new mosques or churches this year are not tracked. While both churches and mosques are continually being established, the overall trend shows steady growth for mosques and a more mixed or declining trend for churches. Now, I also did some research on how many churches there are in the United States. Let me see if I pulled that up here. Let's see. And I know the number was, let's see, I can't find it here. And I remember the number, the amount of churches that have opened in the United States or are currently open are between 330,000 to 338,000, ladies and gentlemen. So with that said, about mosques being, it is concerning that many are opening, and they're saying as many as 48 in Texas alone this year. They got a long way to go to catch us here in America, right? As far as our overall Christian church has grown, we're talking all denominations, Protestant, Presbyterian, Catholic, all of them together, Baptist, right? All of those churches equaling over 330,000 here in America. But there's some other concerning stuff here too. I want to show you an example of the kind of concern that we should be worried about as things begin to rise. And everybody knows that Mamdani now is mayor of New York City. And this last weekend, we just had a UFC fight at Madison Square Garden, right? And this fight came out, and I want to give you a positive outlook here first before I go into the seriousness of it, because there was some really good stuff that happened too before the fight actually took place on Saturday. And this was Jack Posobiec, who came out and was throwing T-shirts to the crowd outside of the USC fight. And they actually didn't bring enough shirts because they handed them all out. And I think he says they have 3,000 here that they began with. But let's check out this video together.
Couple of months with violence, not just what happened to Charlie, but I think violence in our whole country. There's been upheaval. And we tried to come out there last night to do something that would highlight something positive, something good, to show that there's still goodness in the world, to show that there's still a chance for redemption, even in many cases.
Yeah.
And so, look, we had 3,000 shirts. We had no idea if that was, people would want them, if we could even get 3,000 out. We handed out all 3,000 in just 1 hour.
You needed more.
1 hour.
We ran out. We completely ran out.
And look, here's video of you doing just that. Talk to me about the fact that you chose to come to one of, if not the most progressive, liberal left cities in the country, just elected a socialist mayor, and yet you came in here.
Yeah.
Well, look, here's what it is, right? We're either going to get MAGA or we're going to get Marxism. And Charlie talked about that a lot. He talked
MAGA
about
or Marxism,
Mondonomics.
ladies and
And
gentlemen.
New York City at the same time, look, there's the Freedom Tower here. There's obviously the 9/11 history. And we came in because we said freedom is not going to go.
Look, and we know that where Christ is, there is freedom here in the United States, right? This is why we must defend our nation as Christians. Our Constitution does not have a main religion as its source, right? But it is designed around Judeo-Christian values. And that's important to remember here in the United States. We are not compatible with Islam. None whatsoever. I wrote a blog this last week on the fact that Islam does not call God their father. It's against their religion. You should go in on my website at rdm.team, become a member there, sign up with your profile, right? Send me a note, an email that you've joined, ladies and gentlemen, and rdm.team, and check out that blog. I think you'll find that information very interesting. But it's also crucial to remember here that just as Jack points out, that we give the chance for redemption and show the people, as he is out here before this fight that happens, to continue to spread like Charlie did. He wasn't afraid of the confrontation. He actually went out and stated the facts, and he wasn't afraid of anybody's telling him different, because he knew what the facts were and what the truth was.
Away. Freedom is going to fight. That's what Charlie Kirk stood for. New York City is America's most iconic city. And I say this as a Philly guy, that it is the greatest city in America. It just is, right? Sorry, Dad. But good history. But it really a great history. You talk about freedom, you talk about America. But freedom is going to fight. There's been so.
All right. So you see there. Oops, sorry about that. So you see there that that's what Jack had to say, and it's important to understand that that just because Mamdani is a Muslim, or he may believe in Islam, and I believe he does, we see this pairing of the Islamic belief system in the regime with democratic socialists of America, right? Because now that's what they're pivoting for. Socialism, communism is what they're trying to bring in, because they feel, especially the Muslims, they feel like they can take over by blending together. And they've been planning this for a very long time. So I want to get into the fight that actually broke out there at the UFC. So I'm going to pull up this video here, and you can see what happened, and then we're going to show you Dana White's statement afterwards, and then the opposing fighter of this match, who actually won the match, but the other guy who lost is now completely banned from the UFC to ever fight again, or to even come and watch a fight. So it's pretty intense here. You can see this is the kind of thing that we're going to be dealing with now that we have an Islamic candidate voted into office here in New York, these people feel free to be able to do this kind of stuff. And I think this is one of the reasons why this fight broke out in New York City, because they felt like they had the edge and they were free to confront. Now, supposedly this was an internal family fight, but you'll see what Dana White says here, and he says it pretty good. About what he didn't realize before he just let this happen. Let's take a look. Pretty brutal. Sorry, some chaotic footage there. Dennis, who was the guy that supposedly started this brawl, was going around to other fighters' seats and sitting in them, antagonizing him because he believed he could do so. Interesting, right? There he is. That's Dennis.
Today I feel so strong, very fast, very powerful, and very confident.
Now, when he says Islam there, Islam is actually the first name of the other fighter too. So he's not talking about the religion there, but. There he is again. Oh, another brawl. I didn't hear that.
Sit your ass down.
I apologize for the language.
Sit down. Come on, man. You're ruining the fight. We're trying to watch.
Oh, this must have been the other brawl.
Sit down. Oh, shit.
Man, that's a crazy night.
Damn. Freaking hell. Stop. Chill, guys. Relax. Stop. Watch the fight, guys.
Wow. So you could see there, that was a pretty intense situation and stuff that could have been avoided. A lot of posturing going on there, obviously, and different belief systems, all kinds of stuff, right? So here's what Islam Makachev, I can't even say his last name. This is what he had to say in his interview after the fight was over and he was being interviewed. Let's check this video out. Let me pull it up here for you.
Their teammates and Dylan Dennis, Dana was in here talking about it. He said it was his fault letting them sit too close to each other, but was that a distraction at all, or what did he think of all that?
When you talk about someone like last 5 years, last 5 years you talk about someone, when you meet them, как будто ты должен отвечать за свои слова.
You have to answer to what you said.
You have to answer what you said, And today, I don't think he answered, And he still say a lot of bad things about our team. And today, he coming and somebody just meet him. He talk about.
So apparently what was said was Danis accused Islam of being the troublemaker because they've known each other for a long time. I can't remember if they're in the same family or they're just in the group of fighters, but they've known each other for a long time. And he says that Islam has been the instigator and causes trouble all the time. So that's what he's talking about when he says he didn't answer back for those accusations.
About this guy's bad, and today the guys just meet him. That's it.
Dana said he's banned from UFC events for life, so he'll never be back to one.
He have to ban from this country also.
Yeah.
Let me walk you through.
Obviously getting ready for the fight backstage and a huge.
He should be banned from this country as well, for sure. I like that statement he had to say there. That was pretty crazy. Hold on a sec. All right. So let's go to the next video. This is Dana White. And he gives his 2 cents on what happened, why it ended up happening on his watch, because he didn't see a problem with what was going on at first, but then the mistake was him not realizing some stuff on the onset because of who they are. So let's look at this video here. If it'll come up here, hold on.
Stuff happens all the time, especially behind the scenes. But I was right there on press row when that crazy brawl broke out with Dylan Danis and the member of Habib's team and stuff. Can you just tell us how disappointed you were to see that and any insight into the fallout?
I blame myself for that, actually. They came back and told me right before I walked out for the main card that Dylan Danis was here and he was moving around sitting in fighter seats and not sitting in his own seat that he had. He had a ticket. And they said, do you want us to throw him out of here? And I said, he has a ticket? And I said, yeah. And, they told me, they said, Masvidal said he's going to fuck him up on site. And I said, well, where's Masvidal sitting? He said, well, he's 6 or 7 rows away from Masvidal. I said, well, if the guy has a ticket, let him sit in his seat and let him do what he's doing and keep an eye on him. It never even crossed my mind, stupid as this could be, that the entire Muslim Brotherhood was here tonight in the first 5 rows for Islam. And as soon as it broke out, I was over on the other side and I go, fuck, I know exactly what that is. I knew it. And yeah, you will never see Dylan Danis at a UFC fight ever again.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's wanted badly to come in this company. And
See, but so what can you expect from a city now that is that feels postured to be able for these people to do whatever they want? And you got 2 fighters that come in with the same belief system and they're posturing against one another. And like Dana said there, the first 5 rows were filled with these people.
Said you guys don't want to sign him because he makes too much trouble. I guess point made.
Well, that and a lot of other reasons,
Yeah.
But yeah, you'll never see him at another fight. So they called me from downstairs and they said, we got him down here. Do you want to press charges and have him arrested? And I said, no, we don't want to press charges. This is the fight business, man. You know how I feel about this shit. And I could have prevented this tonight, and I messed up.
Yeah. Anyone else get arrested or anything like that in the fall?
Not that I'm aware of. No,
Okay.
We're not pressing charges. I'm not speaking for MSG or
Right.
anybody else that was involved in it.
See, so he admits that because it's the fighting world, that this kind of stuff happens all the time, or at least some of the time. But he acknowledges the fact that he didn't realize there were so many Muslim people sitting in the same area, which is one of the things that he failed to recognize before that thing happened, right? Let's see. I wanted to see if I got another one here. So let's get into. Did I play this? Oh, so one of the things that Islam said. Oh my God, I'm not gonna. I just lost connection from that site. Okay, well, we'll skip over that one. I'm sorry, I lost the page. So Islam has not overtaken Christianity, and I want to talk about the UK right now because I think the UK is one of the models that we have for especially modern day and right now with what happened over there for them to be taken over by this socialist Islamic ideology, communism. And don't get me wrong, it had help. So here in America, we have a lot of sympathizers in government, if they are not Muslims themselves, with progressive white candidates and officials, right? So Islam has not overtaken Christianity as the dominant religion in the United Kingdom, but its proportion of the population has grown rapidly in recent decades. And I want to tell you about this because this gives us hope for right now here in America as a demographic, because it's going to give you some numbers here of what we can do in order to avoid this happening in America. Now, we've taken some steps. I just revealed to you a little bit earlier that that Islam and CARE were designated as foreign and domestic terror group, right? Terror groups, which is important. And I think we need to do that across the entire United States. But let's check this out. Christianity was the majority faith until recently, with the 2021 census showing Christians making up 46.2% of the population, while Muslims accounted for 6.5%. The percentage of Christians fell below 50% for the first time in 2021, driven by both rising secularism and increasing numbers of Muslims. So there's the two parallels, right? Secularism, this is this idea of socialism and communism that came into the UK, right? And Muslims at the same time. So it only took 6.5% of Muslim population to come into the UK in order to come in with that ideology and couple with the secularism and overtake their culture and society back in 2021. Islamic presence in the UK goes back centuries, but significant demographic change began after World War II. The same thing is happening here, ladies and gentlemen, with this migration from former British colonies. The Muslim population has grown rapidly by 1.2 billion in just the last decade. That's 2011 to 2021 alone. Projections estimate that the Muslim share could double by 2030. So we're talking about if it's 1.2 billion in that first decade, then double that would be 2.4 billion on top of the 1.2. So they could be hitting 3.6 billion people in the next decade, right? By 2030. And we're we're already halfway there, ladies and gentlemen. But it remains far from overtaking Christianity outright. Well, if the Christians aren't doing anything to fight back, ladies and gentlemen, then what do you think is going to happen over there in the UK? And we're already seeing the results of it. If you're not paying attention and you're not checking out videos that do show people that are now praying or walking down the street singing a hymn, these people are getting arrested and put in jail because it's now illegal for you to do that in the UK. As of 2021 UK census, about 93.5% of the population are non-Muslim. Since Muslims make up approximately 6.5% of the UK population, given the total UK population is around 67 million in 2021. So here's another good statistic, ladies and gentlemen. So the entire population of non-Muslims before all of these Muslims started coming in and taking over, right, is 67 million people in the UK. So the good thing about here in the United States is that we have somewhere around 330 million to 340 million. And that's a little wishy-washy, obviously, because we've had this influx of illegals over the last 4 years during the Biden term, right? So, you know, in all reality, we're sitting at about probably 360 million now, 350 to 360 million people in the United States. But the portion of that are non-Muslim is an overwhelming majority. Let's see. This means roughly 62.7 million people in the UK are non-Muslim. Christians remain the largest religious group, followed by those with no religion and other minority faiths. The Muslim population in the United States in 2025 is estimated to be between 3 and 4.5 million. So making up approximately 1.1% to 1.34% of the total US population. And what did I say? Just read you about how big the Muslim population got before it overtook their culture and ideology there in the UK at 6.5%. So we got a significant amount before they actually reach that here, because like I said, we have 330 to 340 million. So now it should be the urgency that we need as we have this model over in the UK to look at, to be able to stop what's coming now, right? So the community is notably, Muslims are the third largest religious group in the country following Christians and Jews. The community is notably diverse. Roughly 1/3 are Black, 1/3 are of South Asian descent, a quarter are Arab, and the rest come from various backgrounds, including growing Latino Muslim population. Muslim Americans tend to be younger than other religious groups, with a large percentage born in the US, while the rest are immigrants or second-generation Americans. The largest Muslim populations are found in the states like New York, California, Illinois, New Jersey, Texas, and Michigan, right? So, like I said, 6.5% of 335 million is approximately 21.775 million people. That's where they would have to get to in order to reach 6.5% of the American population, right? So, with that said, and in closing here today, I just want to encourage everybody that as Christians, we are the ones that need to step up, and we need to go out and proselytize the people of the United States and take our place as ambassadors of Jesus, in order that Islam does not win out in religious swapping, like I read you from the article at the beginning of the show, right? We need to bring in converts. We need to bring in and have the mentality of saving souls here in the United States so that Christianity wins out, because they're out for our nation, ladies and gentlemen. They are not going to stop, and this is their plan. It's total global domination. The United States isn't the only one. We, like I said, we have that model of the UK over there in Europe, and they've done it to other nations, right? They've totally taken advantage of the system, because this is what they have been working for centuries. I was going to say decades, but it's been centuries. This has been a long, long, long time that they've tried to take over, because this is asymmetric warfare, and they can't overtake us with military conflict. They overtake us by ideology, by growing their family, and then taking over governmental positions. This is what they're doing. And so we have to make sure that we're stepping up in the spirit of our Lord Jesus Christ and bringing to their doorstep the message of the gospel. And ladies and gentlemen, I want to, on my way out, play this video for you because I found this and this is pretty intense, but I really like it. And it's AI, just warning you, but I really like what this person put together. Pretty intense. Check it out.
The Muslim will know that Jesus was the Son of God. The atheist will know that Jesus was the Son of God. The Buddhist will know that Jesus is the Son of God. The Hindu will know that Jesus is the Son of God. And everybody that rejected him, played church, played conference, ran to some other religion, following a false Messiah, they're going to know that Jesus is the Son of God. We can argue right now about theology. Will be no arguments on that day. Then we will know that Christ was the Son of God, is the Son of God.
About because, ladies and gentlemen, we serve a powerful God, and I just want to encourage you in your faith to step up today and let these other religions know who the true God is, because we are not waiting for a rescue, ladies and gentlemen. We are training to rule, and this is the test of our faith for today. Right? Come on, ladies and gentlemen, let's get on board with this, because we don't blur the line here. We draw that red line, because it's time to draw the red line in your life, the red line in your mind,